very, very proud to welcome Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes-Norton to Trinity's campus. We also have a distinguished panel of amazing women leaders, and Congresswoman Norton is going to introduce them, but I want to extend a warm welcome to these three talented women. Normally, it would be President McGuire who would be at this podium giving the welcome, and Congresswoman Norton knows that Ms. McGuire was unable to attend today. And that's because she's in San Francisco about to receive an award. The news is embargoed, so you're the first to know that she is going to receive the Father Theodore Hesburgh Award today out in San Francisco. But because she's Pat McGuire, she is live tweeting this event, so she's with us in spirit. Aaron Washington is a senior at Trinity and born and raised Washingtonian. And what I will always remember about Aaron is I asked her to attend a roundtable that Congresswoman Norton had about DC TAG. And she said, okay, I'll go. And then it was pouring rain, and it was at night. And I said, are you sure? And she said, absolutely. And she went in the pouring rain because she believes so strongly in the value of DC TAG. Aaron's going to introduce Congresswoman Norton, but first I want to say one word about Congresswoman Norton, and that is DC TAG. So many Trinity students are beneficiaries of DC Tuition Assistance Grant, and without Mrs. Norton's leadership, we would not have it. So let's We currently have more than 350 students who receive DC TAG. That's more recipients than any other DC university. And over the years, the lifetime of DC TAG, more than 1,800 students have benefited, Trinity students have benefited from DC TAG. So for that, I am very pleased now to turn this over to Aaron Washington.
Introduction. How's everyone doing today?
Very good.
Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes-Norton serves as the District of Columbia ranking member of the House of Representatives for DC's at-large district. She was born in Washington, D.C. She later attended Antioch College in 1960, Yale University in 1963, and she went to graduate from Yale Law School in 1964. Her list of her later professions include an organizer for a Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee during the Civil Rights Movement, law clerk, head of the New York City Human Rights Commission, U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, law professor, but the list goes on and on. She has broken barriers for Washington, D.C. residents and successfully provided economic benefits for her constituents, including petitioning that the District of Columbia provides high school grants such as DC TAG, home buyer and wage credit, free tax preparation as well. She is an example for many young minority women such as myself and has played a staple role in shaping the lives of my family and friends, as well as many other Washingtonians. Like I said earlier, and like Ann Pauley expressed earlier, I am a DC TAG representative and the recipient. This has definitely been a milestone in shaping my collegiate career, being able to be involved in DC TAG and DC CAP, and it's, not having to think about so much about my student loan debt because I'm having this grant. It's been very beneficial to me. Also, in addition to that, I have done the summer youth program where I actually got to be a White House intern. Like Ann Pauley said earlier, I did a roundtable discussion, and I've been able to connect with other students who've been recipients of DC TAG. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, you couldn't have thrilled me more than have a DC TAG student to introduce me and to learn that there have been so many students who have received DC tag. We got an increase, not in the amount each student gets, but a 25% increase in total DC tag this past year. And I think the reason we've been able to do that in a Republican House and Senate is because of what you have done with DC tag. We're able to show that DC tag students graduate, isn't that right? And we've been able to show that DC tag students come back to their hometown or are educated in their hometown and contribute to the growth we see now in the economy of the District of Columbia. So I'm here to applaud Trinity for educating so many DC tag and other students here in this extraordinary college. We are grateful to Trinity, and particularly to my good friend who's out getting the Hesburgh Award, which is extraordinary award that is, and she could not be more deserving of it. Pat McGuire, who I've known for many years, even before she became president, has remade Trinity for the 21st century. We know you have many proud alumni, including my own Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi. We're very proud of her and of Trinity, and she is proud of Trinity as well. You see me sitting down, and the reason I'm sitting down is I'm trying to put everybody at ease. I'm not here to give a lecture. We're here to engage you, young people, and especially young women, during Women's History Month. And we can think of no better place to do it than here in Trinity's social main hall. We thought it was a perfect venue to celebrate, to commemorate what we're calling Women of Excellence. Now, the Women of Excellence we're commemorating are not the ones you read in the history book. They're long gone and we love them. But we thought you would appreciate Women's History Month if you saw history in the making, or history that is being made as we speak. So we appreciate these three extraordinary women who've been willing to come to engage in a conversation with you this morning. Gina Adams on my left, Nakeisha Neal Jones on my right, and Laila Linares on the far right, at least my far right, for agreeing to come as living history, history in the making, role models of the kind that increasingly are found among young women. So what we want to do is to get right on with them. And first I want to thank the three of them. These are women very, as you will hear from their accomplishments, women who are very busy in what they do, but they care enough about young women like yourselves who are on your way to making history that they have taken time out to come and say a few words to you about them, about who they are, and about what they have done and how they have done it. To my left, Gina Adams, a graduate of Baru High School. That's where she began. I'll tell you where she ended up. First, she ended up as Senior Vice President for Government Affairs for that. You see that white truck you see all around with those green letters saying FedEx? That's her. Gina works with administration officials, with people like me, members of Congress, with the diplomatic community, with the industry. She's been at FedEx since 1992. She has twice received their FedEx 5-Star Award, which is the company's highest award. So you know she must have had a lot of competition, but there she came out on top. Now, Gina got her Bachelor of Science degree from American University right here in the District of Columbia, and Howard Law School, where she got her law degree. And then she went on. You notice that these women of accomplishment, they go on to get themselves highly educated, so you can't say they don't know nothing. She then went on to get her LLM in International and Comparative Law. She was an attorney in the honors program at the U.S. Department of Transportation. Now, isn't that interesting? This surely prepared her to come as one of the leaders of one of the leading transportation companies in the United States. And I know FedEx very well because I am ranking member on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and Gina's work is very important to the country and to this city. Now, she's on an incredible number of boards. I thought you'd appreciate knowing, especially the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater and the Museum of Women of the Arts, with many, many others. She's on Elle Magazine's Top 10 Women of DC Power list. Take that and do something with it. Gina is, with all that, married and has a son who lives right here in DC. I'm going to turn it right over to Gina Adams.
First, thank you, Congresswoman. She does a fantastic job for all of us in Washington, D.C., and not just the residents of Washington, for our nation. As a member, as ranking on the T&I committee, all the transportation companies rely on her wisdom and knowledge to help us through some very tough issues. So thank you, Congresswoman, for that great introduction. It is a pleasure, and it's nice to meet my other panelist member. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I'm not going to take up time talking too much because I really hope that we can spend time answering your questions or giving you information that's going to be useful for you as you plan your careers. As a congresswoman has already said, I am a native Washingtonian. She started with Blue High School, but I went to Turner Elementary and Johnson Junior High School, and I don't even know if Johnson is still around, but I still go back to my high school a couple of times a year to talk with the students and do kind of what we're doing today, just share my background. Most of the students are shocked when they find out that I'm from the Blue Senior High School. Something that I'm very proud of and that I share every time I'm introduced, because it's a great school, a lot of wonderful students there, and I'm proud of it. After that, I went to Howard Law School, and then, kept on going to get an LLM from Georgetown. I've been at FedEx for 24 years, and it seems like yesterday. I unfortunately didn't spend any time at Trinity, and since I've been around the city, I've met so many wonderful women who've gone to Trinity, and it's one opportunity that I missed. So I'm happy to be here, and should I just turn it over, or should we? All right. So when I was in law school, I had absolutely no idea what kind of law I wanted to practice, and I didn't really even know that there were so many different kinds of law that I could decide to participate in. I didn't know that. I didn't have any lawyers in my family. I was the first person to graduate from a four-year college. And so when I got in that door, and we all gathered in a new courtroom, and somebody said, look to the right, look to the left, because one of you won't be here next year, I was absolutely terrified, because I didn't know that one of you would be me. But it didn't take me long to realize that I didn't have anything to worry about, that Howard was a great institution. And as I got more comfortable with the various areas of the law, I realized that, okay, I was interested in labor law. And so I focused very heavily on that field, got in what was called the labor law clinic, worked for a labor law professor while I was in law school, and was sure that once I graduated that I would be practicing labor law. Then there was a sort of career day, and we had the Department of Transportation come to Howard University to interview students, and they talked about this honors program. One thing led to another. I ended up at the Department of Transportation in that honors program, and that opportunity gave me a chance to rotate in what they call the operating administrations at DOT. And what I realized at that time is I was very interested in international law. I hadn't traveled much outside the city. Our class trip was to Jamaica, and that's as far as I'd gone. So I didn't have any international law experience, hadn't taken an international law course at Howard. And so I applied for this. I had the audacity to apply for an international position in the general counsel's office, interviewed, and lo and behold, got the job. So there were a lot of people at DOT who had a lot of experience, and I realized that I needed to catch up. And that's when I went back to school to get my LLM in international law. Worked in that office for 9 years, traveling the world. And then I was on an airplane having a conversation with a young woman who had interests similar to mine. And I was at a point in my career that I needed to make a choice. Either I was going to be a government lawyer, which I was perfectly happy to be, very proud of working for the U.S. government, having grown up in Washington, D.C. On that airplane, we talked about, careers and what I was going to do, and it was a couple of years before I left, going to get in, I'm about to have to make a decision. Shortly thereafter, I got a telephone call from FedEx, and they said, we hear that you might be interested in leaving and going into another area. And my initial thought, again, having worked all of my life in government, was, as my family would say, no, you're not going to leave that good old government job. Go into the private sector where they have an employment at will situation. And you can get fired. So I told my mother who said that, I said, oh my God, and I guess I have to work on not getting fired. So I started at FedEx managing their international regulatory office, and it was a great decision for me, and here I am 24 years later, still at FedEx. I've held a number of positions in between that time. The thing that I love most about my job is you never know, working with members of Congress, what your day is going to be like. So it is, it's a very satisfying position to be in. I care a lot about the community. I think it's very important for our employees. We have 340,000 employees at FedEx. And when you walk into an office, inevitably everybody has a FedEx courier story. They don't see me, but you see the folks delivering your packages and doing the real hard work to make us look good. And so I believe in our community and the work that is necessary to make sure that FedEx is a good corporate citizen and has an impact on the community, so I make sure that we participate and our employees are able to see us in the community doing great work. We support a lot of causes, important causes, in Washington, D.C. and around the nation, and I'm very proud of that, and our employees are very proud of it as well. So that's about me, and I look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Gina. Many of you will want to know, and I hope you heard her say that she got a phone call from FedEx. And I hope that says something to you about what all those years of preparation mean, having impressed so many people, that somebody said, well, why don't you call this young woman, among others. You know, it's not easy because I'm sure she wasn't the only one that they were looking at. But I hope you're encouraged by the notion of all the preparation and how far it mattered. Now, all of these are path breakers. And as Gina said, you know, we live in D.C. It's a wonderful company town. The company is the United States government, and there's lots to be said for it. But she broke out of that and went into the private sector, and part of the private sector where women, and especially women of color, are not exactly profiled. Now we have another young woman who has, again, just like those of you in the audience and at Trinity, born and bred here. In fact, a graduate of Banneker High School. The reason I say junior high school is I graduated from Banneker Junior High School. And they went and made it into a high school for very talented students. She also has another qualification to be here, and I didn't even know that. When I guess I knew it once I knew the name. But that she interned in my office, we know how to pick them. People will work for you for free, even though they have all the excellence you're looking for. Well, what is interesting about Nakeisha Jones is she's executive director of an organization she started out with, and that is executive director. She's executive director of Public Allies. Now, Public Allies are found all around the United States, 23 different parts of the United States. And she began, just like Gina, in government, as director in the office of the deputy mayor for planning, where she worked with residents of public housing communities. And she also earned her undergraduate degree in an area closely related to her work today in public policy at Duke University. She has a master's degree in public policy from Georgetown. And guess what else she does? She has completed a marathon and a triathlon. Wow. You got to tell us about that too. So I'm pleased to introduce Nakeisha Neal Jones to you at this time.
So I want to say thank you as well, Congresswoman Norton. And certainly what I gained from that short time with her was that she is a tireless advocate for our city. This is someone, we were talking a little bit in the back, and we asked her, who are your mentors? And she said there weren't really a lot of people around. And she had to go and make her own path. And so I appreciate that. She is now doing that in Congress for us every day and has done that for many years. And so she is someone who certainly I look up to, and I am just immensely grateful for that we have someone who's there on our behalf in the district. So thank you, Congresswoman Norton. And thank you, all of you who just took time out of your day to be with us today. I'm grateful to be here, honored to be with these other panelists, and hope that what you hear today, that you might hear a nugget for you. My story is really about relationships. I can say that I came to this work because of my experience growing up here in the city. I knew what it's like to be a part of a community that's challenged with many of the challenges that come from an inner city. I also know what it's like to be supported by family and community, and to be able to have opportunities that many of the statistics say that I shouldn't have had. And so I'm grateful for that, and I've always just wanted to open doors so that other people can get here. And I can say now that one of the routes to doing that was actually that required community service in high school. Really did. Didn't like it while I was there, but it really did show me how to form relationships in communities. I continued that in college, and one day, senior year, I was sitting down with one of my professors. And at my college, the options were really consulting, investment banking, law school, or medical school for people who were graduating. And so we thought for a little while about how I could fit into some of those places. And then one day he asked me to consider public allies, and it stuck. And so I came back home to DC to be a public ally, and it really did show me that I could do work that was connected to my natural interests. I learned some things about education here in the city that I wouldn't have otherwise, because there were people who I had gone to, went to DC public schools as well, elementary and junior high school, and encountered some of my classmates that didn't have basic math and reading literacy skills. And I had gone on to college, and it made me wonder how that could happen. But I think more importantly, what was I going to do about it? So I knew that I was just then set on a pathway to continue to help opening doors for people that traditionally hadn't had them. Every job that came after that was through a relationship. After Public Allies, I worked with a trainer from Public Allies. After that, I got a job I worked in housing, training people to buy houses or maintain their houses. And a friend sent me that job description because she thought it'd be great. A friend told me about the Capital City Fellows Program, the district government. And so that's how I started working for DC government. And another thing that I think has been important for me is just I have a love for learning. I ask a lot of questions. I have to let people know. It's not about being critical, but I really am naturally inquisitive. And I ask a lot of questions. And so I think about, with every experience, certainly how can I contribute and how can I learn? And so I didn't plan to be with the district for about 8 years. Now, I held about 5 different roles in that 8 years. But I was also just amazed and honored to find people who work really hard. And also just understand more about the power of leadership to get things done. And with the right leadership, how you really can, even though it does seem like there are immense challenges, you can get a whole lot done. And so one day, the national CEO, our past national CEO of Public Allies, our Public Allies program here in DC had closed down for about 6 years. And I was a part of a group of alums who, when it closed, and that closing seemed pretty imminent, we weren't happy because we think that this experience is one that really does allow for both personal and professional growth in tremendous ways. And so I joined, we had a National Alumni Advisory Board. I joined that board and said, I want to make sure that DC stays on the radar. I want to make sure that our alums in DC stay connected as well. And I don't know if you've ever had the experience of advocating for something. And then one day someone presents it to you and says you do it. That's exactly what happened with Public Allies. Our national CEO at the time said, we've got resources to do it and we want you to do it. And I told him for about 5 minutes every reason why I couldn't do it. Why someone else should do it. I just wanted it to happen. I didn't want to lead it. But at the end of that conversation, I was certainly on board. So I've been back at Public Allies for about 6 years. And my goal there is really to help other people come into this work and to create an experience that's 10 times better than the one that I had, and to really just encourage them and create a space where they know that they can do what they want and have the opportunities and networks to be able to do that. So with that, I think that's just an introduction to who I am and some of the experiences that I've had, and I look forward to talking with you more.
I recognize people come and go to the classes and we don't want anybody to cut their classes. But you just heard what it means to become the leader of an organization that you once were a participant in. So it certainly inspires me to hear this. Now, our next speaker is Laila Linares, and we are all very proud of her. Her background is Peruvian. She's born in this country. She's Afro-Peruvian. I'm proud of her at a time when people are talking about immigrants. She's from an immigrant background, though she's born in the United States. And like so many people from immigrant backgrounds, she just sailed out, and I'm using that word, sail, in a very literal sense, into an area where you'll find very few women. She's a graduate of the U.S. Marine Academy, and I want to make a plug right here. For any of you who may have an interest in the academies, because I didn't get to nominate her, but I get to nominate people to the 4 or 5 different academies. And not only did she go to the Marine Academy, but her Bachelor of Science is in Marine Engineering Systems. Now, thus far, you can see her cracking barriers as she goes. And in addition, she simultaneously earned a Coast Guard 3rd Assistant Engineer's license. And she became an officer of the U.S. Naval Reserve. Now, she's got a very, for a young woman, a very long history of participation in ocean transportation, Department of Defense activities. For example, she supervised engineering and maintained marine propulsion plants. Don't ask me what that is. I can tell you, it's not something women do every day. She's been a Department of Defense civilian employees. She has been sent to Croatia. She's worked for the military Sealift Command. And she's done that now in her current capacity as a surge fleet life cycle manager. And I'm telling you, Laila has done some things I don't even know what they are about. So I hope you won't let that deter you. Because she wasn't born into this world knowing that. And I'd be most interested to hear how she ever saw herself in the Marine Academy. She is currently, notice how these women never give up on education, Trinity. She is currently attending George Washington University, pursuing a Master of Science in Engineering Management. So I am very pleased to introduce to you now Laila Linares.
Thank you, Congressman. I guess I'll say I'm most humble just to be sitting up here, really, next to these other two wonderful panelists. Just reading about their accomplishments really just made me feel a little bit like, well, why did the Congresswoman choose me to be up here? But either way, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And I hope maybe my story can help motivate, maybe one or two of you today, or you can connect in some manner. So just to give a little bit of my background, as the Congresswoman said, my dad is Afro-Peruvian. That means there's a small population in Peru of African descent, similar to other South and Central communities, which some people may or may not know about. My mother is Russian and Hungarian. She's Jewish, and her family immigrated from that region just before World War II to avoid what was going on with the Jewish people at the time. That being said, I'm one of 6 kids. I was born in California, but I grew up in Miami, Florida. I went to a high school that was actually the largest in the nation at the time. It was 5,000 kids. And so when you go through a school like that, you really just learn that you're kind of just a number. And you develop this sense of going out and grabbing opportunities, so to speak. You can't really just wait and have someone, ask you what you want to do, or even, offer some of the opportunities that they, that are out there. And if you at home, if you don't have any mentors, such as your parents, or if you don't have any siblings that have went to college, you wouldn't even really know how to go out and get those opportunities. Fortunately, my sister, one of my older sisters, had gone on to John Jay College in New York for a criminal background studies. So she kind of was my lead on how to apply for colleges and how to contact schools and look for different scholarship opportunities and that kind of thing. But I like, similar to the other panelists, I did have a very supportive family throughout my entire life, so I'm very fortunate for that. Whether they had the experience or they didn't, it was always, my mom and my dad were always willing to kind of support me in any endeavor that I've ever had and just push me to my limits. So I've always had an interest in marine engineering. Engineering to start with. I've always sort of been interested in it, but it's scary. Math is scary, for whatever reason. So I had taken a few college courses at a nearby university while I was in high school, and really just started out being, you'd go to these courses over the summer and they pay you. It was like a job. I said, go to school and get paid. That's awesome. That's easy. So I started attending these courses. And I said, hey, this is really cool. I like engineering. And so I expressed that interest to my dad. And my dad is a merchant marine. So for those of you that don't know what that is, I'll mention two examples. And I don't, sort of bad examples, but they're the most popular. So the movie with Captain Phillips, with the Mayor of Alabama, that's probably the first, or the easiest way to kind of explain what I do. So 80% of our goods are transported over water. No offense. Although our trucks and our planes sort of make up the remaining 20%, right? And it all has to sort of work together. But 80% of our goods are to and from the United States are transported, and all over the world, really, by ocean. So those ships, the ones that have the big containers on them, or carry fuel or ammunition, or our tanks and trucks to be able to support our military forces overseas, all of those guys and girls that work on those ships are called merchant marines. Let's not confuse that with our Marines who, go in and find Al-Qaeda and are sleeping in tents over in Afghanistan. We're sort of the water Marines. So my dad was a merchant Marine for 35 years in total. So at that time, when he sort of realized that I had this engineering interest, he brought home a few brochures, and one of them was for the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. So I open the brochure and I see these kids, really these college kids, that look so squared away. I mean, they were there with their uniform, they had their khakis on, all their ribbons, and they just seemed like they knew exactly where they were going, and they knew exactly how to get there, and they were just motivating. And so I said, hey, I can apply here. So initially, I was thinking about going to University of Florida or FSU or something like that for Miami, but I applied and I got in. I got my nomination from Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart at the time, and before I knew it, I was going to the academy. Now, when you get there, I had a similar experience as you, which was, look to your right, look to your left. At least two of you will be gone by the time you graduate, and that's what happened. We had about 2/3 of our class either dropped out or quit. So once I got to the academy, I said, hey, well, since I'm here, I might as well if I'm gonna go, I might as well go for the cold. So I chose the hardest major there, which was marine engineering systems. And so there weren't a lot of options in college. It was basically engineering or learn how to drive a ship or learn about logistics. And again, I just wanted to focus on what my primary interests were, which was taking things apart, learning how they work, things like that. So went through the academy. It wasn't easy. It's one of those places where it's not a good place to go through. I mean, it's tough, but it's a great place to come out of. And I owe every professional opportunity. I can say this to alumni that I've met along the way, or mentors that I've met in the naval engineering field. And for that, I'm very grateful. We have a very, very strong alumni at the Service Academy. So like the Congresswoman said, when I graduated, I went along, I had a few different job options. One of them was with Caterpillar to manage their marine diesel division. It was sort of really just starting out. And then the other option that I was really considering was working at a shipyard in San Diego. But I decided to sail. I wanted to use my degree, I wanted to use my license. Like the Congresswoman said, we study for our Bachelor's of Science, but we also have to study, sort of like you could be preparing for any law degree or any MCAT or anything like that. You have to study for your license exam, and if you don't pass that, you don't graduate. And then simultaneously, we all got our appointment in the U.S. military. So that was an option. But I decided to sail, and I did that for 4 years. I managed the operating plant, so I would sort of just, operate the propulsion plants, and if anything went wrong, we would fix it, and we would respond to the emergencies. That was a great point in my life. I was able to travel all over the world. I can now say I've been to every continent. I just went to Africa on my own, so that was probably the best trip I've ever taken. But over the course of 4 years, I've been on 4 different ships carrying our goods, meaning ammunition, fuel, trucks and tanks in support of our U.S. military, U.S. Navy specifically. At Military Sealift Command, we are sort of the fifth arm of defense, they like to call us, which is our logistics fleet. So after about 4 years, I got a little tired of being away from family and friends. I got tired of, not using the internet for a couple months and that kind of thing. And frankly, it got a little tough to be one of the only women out there on the water. I was challenged in ways that I never thought I would be, both personally and professionally. However, I met a good group of guys along the way, and I've met quite a few mentors that were willing to help me, and I've never really had sort of that barrier of, oh, you're a woman, you shouldn't be out here. It did happen once. I came on board a ship, and a gentleman said, well, it was sort of I think he was from the South, and he was quite a bit older than me. Mostly everyone was older than me on the ship. He was one of the youngest people there. But I was a supervisor, and so he says, some guys still think that women should be out here. And I said, well, I'll be making more than you on this trip, so I guess it doesn't matter. You'll be taking orders from me. I think he was sort of just blown away by that, and after that we were good friends. No problem. And so I've always sort of just, had to hold my own and just prove that on every ship, and I'm sure this is the same for both panelists, you sort of have to prove yourself because of your background and where you come from. You have to have the higher degrees and show that your resume is 4 pages long versus the 1 page. And it was similar for me as well. Every ship, every project, every job I've ever been on, it's been a point of, prove that you're worthy to be here. And I don't mind doing that because I like challenges. So over the last 5 years, I've been at the Washington Navy Yard, and I've done quite a few things. I've done things like government acquisition for new ships, life cycle management, logistics, contract administration. And my ultimate goal is perhaps eventually to join the Selected Executive Service, the SES, which is sort of the highest echelons of the U.S. government. And I'm working towards that now at GW, like the Congresswoman said. So I'll just close by saying, and I'm sorry I've probably gone over my time limit here. I'll close by saying that, again, I'm very happy to be here. Whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior here at Trinity, keep in mind as you go forward and keep your goals in sight that nothing is unattainable. Doesn't matter where you come from. If you have a dream, if you have a goal, if you have a community and family to support you, you really can accomplish anything. So for those opportunities, it may seem a little bit off the beaten path or a little different or strange, whether it be military or Congress or working on the Hill or whatever your goals are. Just know that it doesn't really matter where you come from. It really doesn't. So I wish you all luck, and looking forward to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Well, now that you've been inspired, and if you have been inspired by these people, then you are incapable of being. The floor is yours. So, who has the microphones? President.
If you'd like to ask a question, if you could raise your hand. Awesome. And if you could stand and say your name.
Hi, my name is Lauren Cush, and I'm so glad that you guys are here. So I have 2 questions aimed at all 4 of you. The first one would be, can you ladies share with us one moment or event that kind of determined your direction, the direction of your path?
So first of all, let me say that you are absolutely correct that 80% goes by water, but that 20% that goes by air and truck represents a huge part of our GDP, and it is very valuable cargo. For me, there are so many. There are so many throughout the course of my career, but I always share one. I was on a trip to Malaysia, and we were negotiating an aviation agreement with that country. And I was a lawyer on the delegation that would advise on the issue. And when I walked in the room, I was with 4 or 5 white men and me. And so one of the individuals from the Malaysian side of the table walked over to one of the gentlemen and said, and your assistant can sit over here. But, so I said, they didn't say anything. They kind of chuckled. And we went to take our places. And just like here, I sat at the head of the table in the middle and spoke first, and they soon learned that it was, that it was a different situation. Now, I had some choices at that very moment. I could have wrote that, and I'm not what I was there for. And so we went through the work, and they were very nice, and I have to tell you this, that the rest of the time, nice scarves and fruit in my room and everything. It was a difficult moment for me personally, because I went back to my room and I went, like we always do. What, when, how am I? And I got through that and did all the, fetal position and felt a little sorry for myself. But I was not there. That's somebody else's issue. And I did that. I did a lot of traveling in Asia on my own. Get on the plane, get on the train, get there, do the negotiations. And I decided at that moment I wasn't going to take anything anything that anybody thought, anything going around me wasn't going to be I was there to do a job. I was going to do it the very best I could, and I was going to move on. And the support system, being able to talk with folks about your experiences and just having that support system was very important to me, and I had it. And so I could move past a lot of the other issues that tried to derail me along the way. Yeah.
All right. We're open to the next moment, I suppose. Is there a moment like that?
I don't know that I have a particular moment. Other than a culmination of experiences. I shared the moment when I was sitting down with my professor and he told me to do Public Allies. I can talk a little bit more about what that experience did for me. I mean, it's basically you're placed 4 days a week in a nonprofit, and then 1 day a week with a cohort of other individuals who work together. And in that cohort is where I grew. So even though I've gone to Duke and, on campus, we helped to start a multicultural dorm, and I probably would call myself Miss Diversity. There were some barriers and some boundaries that I kept on purpose while at Duke. And Public Allies didn't allow me to do that. I mean, really, one of my first weeks with the program, walking down Martin Luther King Avenue, with a group of 10 other people, and 5 of them are white, and so, having conversations about the impact of that. I mean, certainly, it's out of place for the community at that time. It's changed a little bit since then. And so, in that group, I was challenged, what do I believe? Why do I believe it? What work do I want to do? And why is that important? And what do I need to sustain myself, because this work is challenging and hard. And so I would say that whole experience was one that really helped me to get firm, that I wanted to do work to improve communities, that I needed to have a group of people to support me, that I needed to have a faith foundation to be able to hope and see things that were beyond those challenging things that I was seeing every day.
Okay, now it's up to Laila to tell us about the moment.
So I don't know that I have one specific moment either, and I mentioned just a couple. I mentioned the gentleman when I came on board the first ship and said, some women, this thing. But there was 2 moments that sort of stand out in my pretty short career so far. But so we had George W. Bush give our commencement address, and it was the first time a president was invited to our school since the 1940s. So our student council did a good job. And so we're walking out, we walked in line to get to our seats, and I remember looking up and seeing my entire family, and they were probably one of the loudest ones, just sort of cheering. And I looked at my dad, and I looked at his face, and he was so proud, and it just, it really it brought home what it meant to graduate from my school and to kind of make it so far. So that was the first moment. And then I guess the second moment, and this came, 6 or 7 years later, so now I'm working for Military Sealift Command, and I was sort of hitting kind of a little bit of a roadblock in my career, and didn't really know if I wanted to stay where I was at or move on. And I had a mentor at the time. He was of Puerto Rican descent, and this was a gentleman that I had the utmost respect for. I mean, he had been in the Coast Guard, he had worked in shipbuilding for a number of years, he was well respected in the industry, he's called on to do, maritime policy work and write bills and that kind of stuff. And he was my mentor at the time. It was sort of an informal relationship, but he had become my mentor. So we had just found out that he had cancer. So he had pancreatic cancer, and he had just would look like a few weeks before he would pass. And so I flew down to California to see him, to say bye. And he wasn't the type of man where you just show up and, he's not about feelings or anything like that. So I didn't tell him that I flew there to say bye or see him. And I said that I was in town for work and I just wanted to stop in. So I went to his house, and, we were just talking about different things. And he said, I know you're sort of hitting a little bit of a roadblock, but he said, don't give up on yourself. Look at me, I come from humble beginnings, and look how far I've made it. And he said, don't ever give up on yourself. He said, you are meant to do great things. You're meant to be up there with the Obamas. I mean, and I was like, what? And so for him to just say those motivational words to me was huge. And so he really, just those words kind of steered me right back onto the track I was on, and I was just rejuvenated. I was refreshed after that. So unfortunately, he passed away, but to this day, I think back on that moment and I say, well, if he said I could do it, then I can do it. So that was that for me.
Another question, yes.
My name is Erin Washington. My question is, what role has civic engagement or corporate social responsibility or community outreach impacted you all's professional career?
What role?
Yes, like what have you done that's shifted and changed your perspective?
We've always been socially responsible, big things at my company. Disaster relief, safe kids, walking kids to school, those kind of big projects, Red Cross, those kind of things. For me, I'm very focused on the Washington, D.C. community. And I remember my high school, Blue Senior High School band, many years ago, were trying to raise money to go to the West Coast to perform. And they had this lovely band, this great band leader. I went up to the school, I talked to the students, and were so hopeful, but anxious that they just couldn't raise this money to go. And I was determined at that I said, wait a minute, FedEx puts its name on it. Maybe they'll get support from other companies, people will feel okay about contributing. So I connected with the local news organization, NBC4, and we surprised the band. I went up to the school with a big check, and they invited the students in, and so from that, they raised the money, all the money they needed, they won the check. I mean, it was just a beautiful story. And so I'm always focused on, what it means for not just this organization, but for the people who are in the organization that I can see and immediately building impact. Yeah.
I remember that. I think it was the Rose Bowl.
Yes.
They had been invited to actually march this marching band. But who has the money to go to California? And there was their distinguished alumnus stepping out. That's corporate. Go ahead, Nakeisha.
I get to say that I get to do it every day. And so I'm really fortunate. Like, we know that our Public Allies alumni, they are more likely to be engaged in their communities. They're more likely to lead community outreach efforts. They're more likely to contact elected officials. About 90% of our folks tend to work in nonprofits or do government service after leaving Public Allies. And so we get to do the work every day to prepare them for that. It's also been a part of my learning. Those community and civic engagement activities that I do outside of work have been about building my own community. I remember a few years ago, it's probably more like 10 years ago now, but there was a group, and I live in Ward 7, and so it's a community that's changing. And for a while, there have been younger people coming in to the community, buying houses, but couldn't necessarily connect readily with some of the traditional civic associations. And so we created a group that was really about developing community and helping people meet each other And it became this, we tried structure, but that didn't really work. And so it really became this loose network, so that we got information out to one another. If people went to meetings, they would distribute it to the group. And at the very least, you could go to a community meeting and see like 5 other people that you knew. So helping to kind of soften that transition. And also some people were long-term residents, so it could also just help to make some introductions. So that work was wonderful. Right after college, I started going to my civic association meetings. And within like 6 months, I was president of the civic association. So sometimes that happens too. They see some younger faces in the room, because there are some people that are, you know, like looking for support and help and looking for other people to lead. And then I've also served on boards. I served on the board for Housing Counseling Services, the organization where I worked, and was doing training in home buyer assistance. And I currently serve on the WAMU Community Council for National Public Radio here. And I just see those as opportunities. You know, how can I get voices of young people or people of color or community-based organizations? How do we get them more into the stories that we do? And my most recent engagement, I am at the point of going through the confirmation process to join the DC Public Housing Authority Board. And so that will be tremendous. You know, that board actually makes policy for all of the public housing in DC, everything from the waiting list to development that happens, to opportunities that residents have. And so I just see it as another opportunity to be able to engage and impact more people in a positive way.
Well, yes. You were in an overwhelmingly male merchant marine and then in an overwhelmingly male scientific profession. So let's hear what you got to say about that.
So I do work for the federal government, so unfortunately, I mean, there are those opportunities sort of to speak on behalf of the government for different kind of recruitment and that kind of stuff, but it gets a little tricky. So I am currently on the board for the Service Academy selection panel under the Congresswoman.
I'm on board where we choose those of you who want to go to the academy. So here is one member of that board.
So it's been great so far. This is only my second year, but we just went through our interview process where we had, I think it was 26, perhaps 26 applicants that made it to our table for interviews, and I was just blown away by these young kids. I mean, there was this one young woman that owned a company, and she's like 16, 17 years old, and there was just, I mean, the resumes, the background were just unbelievable here in Washington, D.C., and that really inspired me to want to get more involved with economic empowerment education, specifically with STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math fields with women, which I know in the United States, engineering is still viewed as it's still up and coming, and we still recruit engineers from India and the like, and so I want to see how we can change that, how we can brew some of our own engineers here in the United States and women engineers, if at all possible. So I've spoken on a number of panels for the American Society of Naval Engineers. I've spoken at the Maritime Administration Department of Transportation for one of their minority awareness events that they recently had. And so any opportunity that I see, I hope to take advantage of. If I can bring some level of, just some of my background of what I've done, perhaps it will inspire women to go, into some of those science technology fields that may seem like they're very, very scary. But they're not. I mean, you may have to work a little bit harder on the math part and things like that, but you can get through it. And the rewards are just enormous. Engineering is one field that where you'll never find yourself without a job. And the way I like to describe it is, we design the stuff, we build it, and then they call us again to fix it. So, It's just, I love what I do. Like I said, it was sort of an off the beaten path career that I chose, but I don't regret it for a second. So for all of you in the room that are tied to any, other schools or Department of Education or things like that, and you would like to find some more information about STEM, I do have quite a few other women colleagues, engineers that would be willing to speak or provide additional information as well.
Thank you very much, Laila. Do we have one more people?
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm current staff member here actually, as well as I'm starting my graduate program in June. And as a recent college graduate and going back into school, how do you really focus on what you want to do with life? I know you all have different foots on these organizations and what you want to do, but how do you really just focus on and plan and make it amazing what you want to do?
Well, now I think each of you went to school and got other degrees after you were employed, as this young woman apparently is doing. So why don't you speak to how you finished with school? Wow, you were back in school. How did that happen? Why did it happen? And how were you able to keep going in your career while continuing to go to school?
That's a great question. I look back on that time. That's exactly what I did. And I look back there and I think, oh my God, how in the world? I don't know if I could do that today. Work and then go back to school, but you do what you have to do. And that's what I did. I mentioned that I got this job, an opportunity. Now, I had the job in the international law office, but I didn't have much experience. And there were so many people around me who had either been in their career for a long time, doing what I aspired to do, or had advanced degrees and did it. There I sat. So I knew that I could get the experience, but I wanted to hurry. I wanted to catch up, and I read everything. I tried to make sure I knew the job and the agreements and all of that stuff. But the terminology, I didn't really know. So I knew that this was my opportunity to gain some years of experience. And I didn't have a choice in my mind. If I wanted to be as good or better, I just knew that I wanted to do more than start here, that I had someplace I was going, and I wanted to make more opportunities for myself. I didn't want anybody to tell me, oh, so-and-so has more experience than you, or so-and-so has this degree or that degree, so we're going to be as equal as we could. And I did it for a couple of years, working, going to school at night, and it mattered. It mattered.
Yes.
And it's not easy. None of us say that, oh, just go to school, because you still have a lot. You're working, you're dealing with those issues. But if you're focused and determined, and you know what you have to do, and this is going to help, people say, why do it? Then you have to do it. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so, that's what I did.
Keisha.
A similar crossroads experience. I was working in a nonprofit organization that the executive director had been there 25 years, the deputy director had been there for 15 years, the director of counseling had been there for 10 years. And I felt like I had done everything else in the organization. So for me, it would have been an opportunity to make a lateral move to another organization where I could grow, or go to graduate school. So I also was just interested in learning more about nonprofit management. Just the business side of the work. Like, a lot of people think that just because you work for a not-for-profit, it's not a business. It is a business, should be run like a business. The difference is what we do with the profits. We put that back into mission. And so I wanted to get more of that knowledge. So I chose to do to get the master's in public policy. And I was still exploring interests. Still wasn't very sure if I wanted to love to travel. So wasn't sure, had studied abroad, had a couple of other international trips, and have a mentor who did international work for about 35 years. And I was still exploring whether or not I wanted to do international and domestic work. And so I took that exploration into school, and I was able to spend the summer between my first and second year in Ecuador, found an organization that I had studied in a class, happened to meet someone who's the son of the head of that organization through a classmate from school, and did that work. And at the end of it all, I ended up working for the district government. And so I made that decision in that way. And I would just encourage you, I've never been, there's some people who are concrete planners, it causes you great angst if you don't know what you're doing 10 years from now. I've never been that type of person. If you are, explore the questions that you need to answer to get that plan in place. For me, it really was about how can I contribute, what can I learn, what kind of environment do I need, and ultimately, like, how does it contribute to the greater purpose that I have?
Wow. Now, you notice that all three had gone back to school after they had gotten that coveted first degree. Now, Laila is in the process of doing it now. Now, here she's already one of a kind and one in an industry. What in the world makes you go back to get a Master of Science Engineering, a Master of Science in Engineering Management degree?
So for me, I think it's all about balance. So I've met quite a few people that have spent 8 to 10 years in school, but they have very little work experience. And then I've met the people that maybe just have the associates or the bachelors, and they never found the time to go back and get their master's. So I think it's really about balance, and it depends on what field you're in. For me, like I said, engineering is very, either you know it or you don't. I mean, you can have 20 degrees, it doesn't matter. If you can't find the solution of the problem, it really doesn't matter. So the higher education is not, there's a lot of engineers who only have their bachelor's. I decided to go back to school because I think that a master's really just puts kind of like the polish on a stone. So whereas you can have that work experience, you go to, now that I'm in my master's program, I'm constantly saying, oh, okay, that's what I do at work. This is just, it's learning an additional way to express yourself and really just become a manager. But with regards to work, I will say this, and it depends, if you don't have the degree, your upper management can say, well, this person has the 15 years experience or 20, which sometimes has happened to me. But what has really helped has been that I've been able to diversify my portfolio, my work experience. So if there's an opportunity, especially when you're at work, where there's a project that no one wants to do, and it sucks, and it's going to be hard, then you go and take that project because you're going to come out looking like an all-star. So you have to start somewhere. So when you're on the bottom, and I'm still pretty new in my career compared to these two women, but I took those projects and I made them what I could of them. So, take those projects that no one wants, take those opportunities, travel opportunities that nobody wants to go on, and if you see an area in your organization that there's a gap, the name of the game is selling yourself, right? So if you see a gap, then you want to convince your upper manager that you can fill that gap. And before you know it, you may create a job for yourself, and they may ask you to come back and run the whole thing. So, it really in today's competitive industries, you have to have your master's. There's just no way around it. And like I said, it really just puts that polish on becoming, ready to take that management role. So that's what it's been like for me.
Evans. Look, that's incredibly excellent questions, and I wish you would help me thank these women of excellence for the way they've gone through. Thank you very much for coming.
On behalf of President McGuire, who has been tweeting during this whole program, She's been keeping in touch by following everyone's tweets. On behalf of President McGuire and on behalf of our students, I want to thank Congressman Norton for choosing Trinity to bring these amazing women